So right now, let's talk about this affordable housing crisis and what do we really mean? Well, over the past 40 years, home prices are up over 500%. And when I saw this graph, I was like, wow, look at how much they've gone up just in recent years. It wasn't always this way that home prices went up this much or this fast. But then I'm like, well, 40 years is a long time. Is 500% normal or not normal? I don't know. But what I dug into and found out is that we really need to pay attention to what percentage of rent or mortgage payments are of somebody's income are going towards their housing. And that has gone up at a staggering percentage. So now average renters put more than 30% of their income towards housing here. And you can see the rate at which that has increased over the short term here, really since 2019 is where you see this incredible spike. 30% is really important because if you start to look at how people maybe fall behind in payments of anything, credit cards, housing, once you start to account for more than 30% of your income going towards your housing, the rest of life gets a whole lot more difficult to pay for. And so now we're over 30%, and it's something that's really the backbone of why this affordable housing crisis is making so many headlines out there. But speaking of headlines, Tara, and I'd love to get your real world perspective here too, but the headlines say that investors are a big part of the problem. I just happened to pull this one from the other day from CNBC that Wall Street has purchased hundreds of thousands of single-family homes since the Great Recession. And this is their impact on rental prices. And Tara, you sit in this unique seat at JWB. You are sort of at the intersection of a lot of, call it stakeholders here. On the operations side, you're responsible for setting rents for our 6,000 rental properties that we manage. On the side of selling our properties to homeowners, to owner occupants, you're responsible for setting prices there. And you get feedback from everybody along the way. You also are here as a part of JWB, which we are an investment firm. We're not Wall Street, but we're an investment firm. And I just think you're in a unique seat here. So what do you think of when you read these headlines, you hear it in the media, but you see what goes on a daily basis? What are you seeing?
I think it's interesting because the media wants to portray that like the big institutional buyers are the ones out there gobbling it all up. When it comes down to it, I'm seeing, I mean, just on our owner occupant sales alone, that out of 114 properties that we closed on last year sold to owner occupants, only 3 of them were from big time investors. So I think that says a lot, especially here in Jacksonville, with such a big market and area.
So I just want to make sure I got that stat right. So out of how many homes we sold? Only 3?
114 homes that we closed on.
Okay. That's really an important nugget. So you're getting information that like on the ground from an investment firm here in Jacksonville. And Jacksonville has made a lot of headlines as being kind of like this mecca for institutions and all of this. But for a company that is leading the way in selling properties under the $300,000 threshold, only 3 of those were actually sold to an investment firm.
Right.
Well, that's pretty good stuff. So, all right. So when you read these headlines, do you feel like it's accurate, or what do you see for your daily basis?
I think it's a way to place blame. I know my millennial group is going to hate that, but it's a way that we can point a finger at something that we can't currently afford. You hear a lot of, I'm in TikTok and Facebook and all those kind of things, and you hear people complaining at why they're not able to afford things. And, in general, prices are going up, but to be able to point at one person specifically, it feels a little better.
Yeah, and I think we all look for somebody to blame here. And I think the key here is that there are investors that are making affordability more challenging. There are a section of investors that are doing that, but there's also a section of investors that are actually helping with the affordable housing crisis. And today, because you all are investors and you're interested in either you're already an investor or you're thinking about it, I want you to know how you're a part of the solution, because that's what Tara sees here sitting within inside JWB. We happen to be a part of the solution here. Here's a stat that many people don't know. When we talk about Wall Street and institutions buying up all these single family homes, the data just doesn't support it. Of all the single family homes, rental homes in the country, there are 14 million single family rental homes in the country. These big institutions own less than 5% of all single-family rental properties. So while they have purchased more over the last few years than they did 10 years ago, and the rate at which they bought those assets was higher, the overall impact there is still incredibly small.
Right.
And so there's really not an opportunity for investors to come in a large scale and start to set rents. Because the only way you do that, if you act like a monopoly, you have to have much higher than 5% of the units under your control. And it's just not reality. So I think that's an important part of it. All right, so Tara, let's talk a little bit about if you're going to be a part of the solution as an investor. What are some of the things, how do we fix affordable housing? What big picture, what are some of the things that we need to do as a society in order to solve the problem?
Supply is the biggest thing. I mean, it's basic supply and demand, right? And so being able to supply more affordable housing is absolutely necessary. So every time you buy an investment property, whether it's here in Jacksonville or somewhere else, you're supplying another property available for those who are in demand of the property.
That's a great point. I'll give some stats here behind it, but at the end of the day, it's just a demand and a supply problem. And we talk a lot, over the last few years, the headlines have all been about this crash of real estate, which never happened. And on the show, we've talked over and over and over again how we didn't see that happening and it didn't come to fruition. But what did crash a long time ago was supply of housing. And supply of housing being so low is what is leading and is the main cause of this housing affordability crisis. So the solution is more supply. And it's not just any more supply. I pulled some stats here that I wanted to share with you guys. It's specifically workforce housing that is the most in need of supply. So according to Freddie Mac, the country overall is short 3.8 million housing units, but the problem's worse for the affordable housing segment. There are only 7 million units available for a renter population of 11 million households that are in need of affordable housing, those with either extremely low incomes or low incomes. So if you want to pick the best part to be a part of the solution of affordable housing, it is how do you increase supply in workforce and affordable housing, which is one thing that as a JWB investor, that's what you do. That's part of the indirect benefits that you get when you buy rental properties with JWB or with any other turnkey provider that is creating inventory, building new houses in the workforce housing part of the spectrum here. Because what you're doing actually, in addition to creating a great investment for yourself, is you're investing in a company that is creating more housing units in workforce housing as well. But that company is also maybe creating units that might not be just for rent. They might also be creating units for sale. Do we do that here at JWB?
Absolutely. Some of you guys on the summit might have seen one of them.
Can you talk a little bit about that? So on the summit here, when we were here just a few weeks ago, we went and we did a property tour and we were able to see 2 houses and they were right next door to each other and they were 2 brand new construction homes. One of them, well, we were actually able to see many homes. One right next door to the other was a turnkey investment property, which was sold to a client. The other one right next door was a retail property sold to an owner occupant. So can you talk about how that right there is an example of how when you invest with a turnkey company, a vertically integrated company, you're helping to be a part of the affordable housing solution?
Yeah, I mean, the more properties we sell, the more we're able to build. And, building 400 properties this year is one of our goals as a new construction company. That's 400 new doors to the market. Out of those 400 new doors, we plan on selling 208 of them to our owner occupant side of the business. And most of those are under 300,000. So that's another way that we're providing affordable housing.
That's right. So last year, I think there were, and I might not have the stats right in front of me.
42%.
42%. Thank you. Yeah. So 42% of all the homes that were sold in Jacksonville under $300,000 were sold by Tara's team. So one outfit here in Jacksonville created 42% of sales for those properties that are sold under 300,000. But all of those new homes needed to be built.
Right.
And those new homes weren't just built out of a new line of credit for JWB. It was built because of all of your investments in our turnkey inventory and all of your investments in private lending. So I want you to feel really, really good that when you choose a certain way to invest, you're a part of the solution. You're not the big bad Wall Street that people like to blame for this entire housing affordability crisis.